Final.
Cup championship bound, baby! Woo! Big cup, baby! Woo! To hear, man. It got a little crazy out there, but we made it through.
We're gonna keep stacking the day, so see you in the championship.
Bow, bow, bow! Let's go!
And when Sheldon poked Caitlin Clark right in the eye during this rematch, something snapped. What happened next will show you exactly why you don't mess with Clark's teammates.
The championship beckons, but before glory, a score needed settling. June 17th wasn't just another game, it was Payback, a date etched into the Indiana Fever's collective memory. Remember May 30th, when Jacy Sheldon and the Connecticut Sun left Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson sprawled and injured on the court, their dirty plays seemingly going unpunished, unchecked by the officials. The Indiana Fever remembered everything, and when Sheldon, with an audacious disregard for sportsmanship, plunged her finger directly into Caitlin Clark's eye during this fiery rematch, something deep within the Fever's resolve finally snapped. What transpired next would etch a powerful, unforgettable lesson into the annals of the WNBA. You simply do not, under any circumstances, mess with Clark's teammates, because Sophie Cunningham was about to deliver a flagrant foul so spectacularly satisfying, it would reverberate across the entire league. If you stand with the Fever, if you believe in true team loyalty, drop a comment below with CC and Spicy Sophie. Let's dive into the unvarnished truth of that unforgettable night.
It was chippy the last time these two teams faced off too. Sophie Cunningham suffered her ankle injury in that game, but in addition to that, she actually had part of her front tooth knocked out. She made contact with Jacy Sheldon as Caitlin Clark knocks down the triple.
But what people don't talk about enough is how hard you have to work to be able to be that good. All the hours that she's spent perfecting her craft.
Retreating, firing, and hitting.
So she can do that.
On Indiana arguing the call.
I mean, step back, you're late. She almost looks you in the eye.
Can we talk about the physicality for a second? Two players on the Indiana Fever got injured last night by the same player on the Connecticut Sun, and that was Jacy Sheldon. And I tweeted about it. She was playing so reckless. I'm fine with players playing aggressive, but there is a thin line between playing aggressive and playing reckless. When you dive for a ball, you don't land on somebody's leg. She landed on top of Sydney Coulson's leg, and her leg got stuck and literally twisted around. Both injuries, both Sydney Coulson and Sophie Cunningham, were contact injuries.
The initial clash on May 30th between these two formidable teams was more than just chippy. It was brutal, a blueprint for the chaos that would follow. Sophie Cunningham bore the scars of that game, suffering not only a severe ankle injury, but also a part of her front tooth chipped away after a collision with Jacy Sheldon. But beyond the surface level injuries, what often goes unacknowledged is the immense painstaking dedication required to reach such an elite level. All the countless hours spent perfecting a craft, the relentless pursuit of excellence, the retreating, firing, and hitting that make a player truly great. Yet, against this backdrop of professional artistry, the Sun unleashed a level of physicality that shockingly crossed the line from competitive intensity to outright danger. The air crackled with tension from the opening tip. Two key Indiana Fever players, Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson, were devastatingly injured that night, both by the same player, Jacy Sheldon. Her play was so undeniably reckless, a stark contrast to aggressive but fair competition. There's a razor-thin line between playing hard and playing with deliberate recklessness. When you dive for a loose ball, you do not, under any circumstance, land your full body weight directly on someone's leg, as Sheldon did to Sydney Coulson, twisting her leg in a gut-wrenching manner. Both Cunningham's and Coulson's injuries were unmistakably contact-induced, not non-contact ACL or Achilles tears.
Sophie Cunningham went down first with what looked like a deliberate hit. The contact was hard, too hard for what should have been routine basketball. Then Sydney Coulson got hurt in another questionable play that had everyone asking what exactly was happening out there. The worst part? Jacy Sheldon was right in the middle of both incidents.
They weren't non-contact. They weren't ACLs, they weren't Achilles, they were contact injuries caused by the same player. And this kind of physicality that the WNBA they brag about. They say it's always been a physical league. That's just the heart of the It's not good basketball. And we've seen so many injuries. Paige Becker's out with a concussion. Rickea Jackson was out with a concussion. All of these injuries are contact plays. We've seen Caitlin Clark last year get chucked to the ground. We saw Angel Reese get clothesline chucked to the ground. The players continue to do it because the refs are allowing them. Why wouldn't you keep doing it if you're a physical player?
Her mortal enemy took out a player. Jacy Sheldon. Caitlin Clark's mortal enemy. Jacy Sheldon.
Cunningham collapsed first from what appeared to be a deliberate heavy hit, the contact far too excessive for routine basketball. Then Coulson went down in another deeply questionable play, leaving everyone questioning the intent behind the Suns' approach. The most infuriating part, Jacy Sheldon was at the epicenter of both incidents, embodying an aggressive style that ignited outrage. This wasn't merely rough play the WNBA often touts as physical, this was dangerous, risking careers. We've witnessed far too many contact injuries in recent times. Paige Buchers and Rakia Jackson sidelined with concussions. Caitlin Clark herself thrown to the ground last year. Angel Reese similarly body slammed. Players continue these dangerous tactics because, infuriatingly, the referees consistently allow them. Why wouldn't a physical player keep doing it if there are no real consequences? This is where the deep-seated college history between Clark and Sheldon exploded onto the professional stage. They had been fierce rivals since their Iowa versus Ohio State days. In college, Sheldon made it her singular mission to crawl under Clark's skin during every single matchup, shadowing her across the court, bumping her on every screen, trash-talking during every dead ball. This wasn't just basketball anymore. This was deeply personal. Clark's perceived mortal enemy had, by all appearances, intentionally taken out 2 of her teammates. Yet the officials on May 30th seemed to exist in a parallel universe, letting almost everything slide. Hard fouls went uncalled. Dangerous plays were blatantly ignored. Clark was forced to watch her teammates endure grievous injuries, while Sheldon walked away without so much as a warning, the frustration building to an unbearable crescendo with every passing possession. The Fever valiantly fought, but ultimately lost that game, 85-83. More devastatingly, they lost 2 vital players to injuries that felt entirely preventable had the officials exerted proper control over the game. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson were sidelined, their absence profoundly felt in the ensuing matchups. That tackle on Sid Coulson was beyond reckless. It was dangerous, particularly from that angle, making it appear even worse. Coulson was clearly between Sheldon and the ball, yet Sheldon dove directly through her knee, and shockingly, it wasn't even called as a foul. You could see the raw fury in Clark's eyes after that loss. The unspoken message in her glare during the handshake line, the carefully controlled anger in her post-game interview. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The Fever would remember this game. They would remember who caused the injuries, and they would remember with chilling clarity that the officials allowed it all to happen. June 17th truly couldn't arrive fast enough.
This is a reckless play. This is reckless. It is dangerous. And this angle makes it look even worse. It is dangerous. Like, Sid Coulson is between her and the ball. Sid Coulson is in fact between Jacy Sheldon and the ball, and she dives through her knee. It wasn't even called as a foul. It wasn't even called as a foul.
So, she just texts me. She never texts me during the game.
All right.
Here is Clark splashing home a 3 from way downtown. Kelly escorting her back to the bench.
Jacy Sheldon is there with her hand in her face, and Caitlin Clark are talking to the official. They're both going at it saying, hey, oh, there's a little extra right there. Uh-oh. Then Marina steps in to protect JC.
And then, June 17th dawned. Caitlin Clark, miraculously back from her quad injury after a triumphant, dominant win against the then undefeated New York Liberty, was ready to confront the Connecticut Sun once more. This was only her second game back after 3 weeks away from the court, yet a fierce determination radiated from her. You could practically feel her memory of the previous encounter, the unresolved injustice. The way she strode onto the court, the intensity of her gaze fixed on the Sun players during warm-ups. This wasn't just another matchup for her. The game ignited with that familiar suffocating tension. Sheldon clung to Clark like her life depended on it, her defense aggressively close, pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable. She shadowed Clark on every single possession, bumping her on screens, employing every petty, irritating tactic that makes basketball ugly. It was the same aggressive, borderline dangerous style that had put Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson on the injured list just weeks prior. Everyone in the packed arena could feel the inevitable collision brewing. stewing, a powder keg waiting for a spark. The sideline conversations between Clark and the officials were heated, filled with desperate pleas for fair play. But the little extra contact continued to escalate, forcing Marina Mabrey to step in and try to protect Sheldon from Clark's growing frustration.
Third quarter we go. They're trailing by 10. Keep an eye on her and Jacy Sheldon. Clark trying to back her down.
Clark is okay.
Sheldon, that was Clark, hitting her in the face. Clark is upset about that. Then everybody's upset about that. Marina Mabrey comes in. She decks Clark, tempers flaring on both sides.
And then Marina Mabrey comes out of nowhere and chucks her to the floor. Now let's watch this in slow motion. Here, Jacy Sheldon is guarding Caitlin, swipes her in the face. There's one. Going for the ball, swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin's gonna have to start wearing goggles. And then Caitlin pushes her off of her, like, why are you still in my face? Marina Mabrey, bat out of hell, chucks Caitlin Clark to the ground.
Then the third quarter arrived, bringing with it the moment that would irrevocably alter the course of the game and this bitter rivalry. Clark was confidently bringing the ball up court when Sheldon once again closed in to defend. She lunged for what appeared to be a steal attempt, but her finger, with alarming precision, went straight into Clark's eye. The contact was immediate, undeniable, and brutal. Clark's head snapped back violently from the impact, a visible jolt of pain echoing across the court. The stadium held its breath. Clark immediately clutched her face, the searing pain and raw anger mixing as the reality of what just transpired slammed into her. She squinted, desperately trying to clear her vision, but her mind was reeling, processing more than just the physical agony. This wasn't some random accident. This was the same player who had injured her teammates, now coming after her with the exact same dirty tactics that had gone unpunished before. Clark reacted as any human being would. She pushed back, physically shoving Sheldon away from her after enduring that painful, violating eye poke. It was a visceral, natural reaction when someone intentionally jabs a finger into your eye socket. The crowd erupted, a collective roar of disbelief and outrage, because every single person in that arena witnessed the blatant foul that started it all. But then, in a move that defied logic and fairness, the referees prepared to make an utterly nonsensical call. The commentators watching the replay were incredulous, certain that Marina Mabrey, who had seemingly initiated further contact, was about to be ejected. Yet despite Clark standing there, clearly the victim of a dangerous play, the officials reached for their whistles. The arena buzzed with confusion and mounting fury. Fans pointed frantically at the replay boards, showcasing the obvious eye poke that had ignited the entire sequence. But the refs, astonishingly, had already made up their minds. They slapped Clark with a technical foul for pushing back after getting her eye violently poked. A technical foul for defending herself after a player deliberately jabbed her in the eye. The decision was a glaring injustice, a baffling display of officiating incompetence that made absolutely no sense to anyone watching. Clark had just poured in 32 points in her first game back from injury, and now she was being penalized for reacting to a dangerous foul from the very player who had sidelined her teammates. This technical foul call sent a chilling, dangerous message to every player and fan. Go after Clark with dangerous plays, and if she dares to react, she'll be the one punished. But the eye poke was only the prologue. Marina Mabrey, a simmering fuse of aggression, was watching this entire travesty unfold, and she was about to escalate things to an entirely different, unhinged level.
Now after this, you guys, of course, the referees are going to review the play because that's a lot of contact going on right there. That's a lot of unnecessary contact. That's a lot of non-basketball contact happening during this play, right? So the three referees that I like to say, they got them straight out of Sephora because I don't think these referees have ever refereed a professional basketball game in their life. They took these referees, they were at the monitor, they looked at it for, I'm not even exaggerating, you guys, like 15 minutes. 15 minutes they are watching this play over and over. The announcers here are saying, of course, Marina Mabrey is going to get ejected because that was unwarranted. She literally came out of nowhere and chucked Caitlin Clark. There should be a flagrant one, of course, on Jacy Sheldon because she swiped her and hit her in the eyeball. Whether it is intentional or not, you can still have a flagrant a flagrant foul called on you, whether you are trying to intentionally hurt somebody or not. But this is what they called, you guys. This is what they called. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabrey, Tina Charles were assessed with technical fouls on Tuesday. Caitlin, Marina, and Tina Charles. Technical fouls. That's it. Technical fouls. That's it. And Jacy Sheldon was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul, and no players were ejected.
Just moments after Clark endured that utterly bogus technical foul, Marina Mabrey decided, with a shocking lack of self-control, to take matters into her own hands. Clark was still visibly reeling from the eye injury when Mabrey, seemingly out of nowhere, launched herself at Clark and committed an act that stunned everyone in the arena. Mabrey unleashed a body check so brutal and unnecessary, it belonged on a hockey rink, not a basketball court, sending Clark tumbling backward onto the hardwood with a sickening thud. This wasn't merely basketball contact, this was a straight-up unprovoked assault. Clark hit the floor hard, her face registering pure shock as she realized yet another Connecticut Sun player had delivered a cheap shot. As the slow motion replay unfolded, revealing Jacy Sheldon's initial swipe at Clark's face, which clearly connected with her eyeball, suggesting Clark might need goggles for future matchups. Clark instinctively pushed her off, questioning why Sheldon was still in her personal space. Then, like a demon emerging from the depths, Marina Mabrey suddenly appeared and mercilessly chucked Clark to the ground. The entire Fever bench erupted, players leaping to their feet, pointing frantically at Mabrey, screaming at the officials, begging someone in stripes to finally inexplicably do their damn job. The crowd swelled into an absolute frenzy, unable to comprehend the brazen violence unfolding on their home court. Coach Stephanie White was losing her mind on the sideline, her face a mask of fury, screaming at the officials who, by some miracle, still seemed oblivious to the blatant assault happening right in front of them. She gestured wildly, pointing at Mabrey, desperately trying to convey that this had spiraled far beyond normal basketball contact. White knew with absolute certainty that her star player had been targeted yet again, and the officials were on the verge of blowing another crucial call.
When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game, it's been happening all season long. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect, right? Out of fierce competition. So I started talking to the officials in the first quarter, and we knew this was going to happen. You could tell it was going to happen. So they got to get control of it. They got to be better.
Sophie commits a hard foul on Jacy Sheldon. Again, as Jacy Sheldon is going up for a layup, Sophie bear hugs her and takes her to the ground. What I will say is Sophie did not grab her and throw her to the ground. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm gonna give you guys my straight up honest opinion on this. She bear hugged her, took her to the ground. Yes, it was intentional. It was absolutely intentional.
Of course, after such an egregious display, the referees were forced to review the play, recognizing the excessive, unnecessary, and distinctly non-basketball contact that had just occurred. But here's where the story takes another infuriating turn. The 3 referees, who one might jokingly suggest were recruited from a Sephora counter given their apparent unfamiliarity with professional basketball officiating, spent an agonizing 15 minutes at the monitor. 15 minutes, painstakingly replaying the incident over and over again. And what was their ultimate baffling decision? They assessed Mabrey with a mere common technical foul, the exact same penalty they had given Clark for simply defending herself after getting eye poked. Just let that sink in for a moment. Clark gets her eye jabbed and pushes the aggressor away. Technical foul. Mabrey body checks Clark to the ground in a blatant act of retaliation. Same technical foul. The math simply didn't add up, and everyone in the building knew it. The announcers, initially convinced Mabrey would be ejected for such an unwarranted act, expressed their disbelief. There should have been a flagrant one on Jacy Sheldon for the eye swipe, regardless of intent, because intent isn't required for a flagrant call. But this was the final, unbelievable ruling. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabrey, and Tina Charles were all assessed with technical fouls. That's it, technical fouls. And Jacy Sheldon received a flagrant 1 foul, and most shockingly, no players were ejected at that point. Coach White, in her post-game press conference, barely contained her rage. When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long, this is what happens, right? She fumed. She had finally reached her breaking point, fed up with watching her players systematically targeted, while the officials stood by, doing absolutely nothing. It's not just this game, it's been happening all season long. This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, and when you allow them to play physical, and you allow these things to happen, they're gonna compete, and they're gonna have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect out of fierce competition. I started talking to the officials in the first quarter, and we knew this was going to happen. You could tell it was going to happen, so they've got to get control of it. They've got to be better. The message was crystal clear. The officials weren't going to protect Clark, so her teammates would have to do it themselves. And Sophie Cunningham, a simmering cauldron of loyalty, was watching all of this unfold from the bench, and she was about to ensure that everyone, especially the Connecticut Sun, understood that nobody messes with her teammates.
It was, to me, payback for what was happening the entire game. But she did it in a way that she wasn't going to injure Jacy. She was just making it known, like, if the refs aren't going to handle it, I will handle it. We'll take care of it, but this is not what you're going to do when you come into our house. It was an intentional foul. It was a hard foul. She brought her down. But with that, you guys, Jacy Sheldon got up and she was ready to go. So as you guys can see in this video, a whole scuffle breaks out. Sophie and Jacy are going after it. Both teams are running over, trying to break it up. It kind of goes into the fan section a little bit.
The final minute of the game arrived. The Fever held a commanding lead, up 87-70, but the scoreboard was secondary. Sophie Cunningham, with a cold, clear focus, saw Jacy Sheldon with the ball one last time. The clock was ticking down, but Cunningham's mind wasn't on the score. It was fixed on May 30th, on the pain of her own injury, on the sight of Clark getting her eye poked with no real consequences, on Marina Mabrey's brazen body check. She remembered her own injury from that brutal May game. The infuriating image of Sheldon walking around as if nothing had happened. The officials letting every dangerous play slide while her teammates were targeted. Now Sheldon was driving to the basket, and Cunningham saw her chance. Sophie committed a hard, undeniably intentional foul on Jacy Sheldon as Sheldon went up for a layup. Sophie wrapped her in a calculated bear hug, bringing her down to the ground. Let it be clear, Sophie did not grab her and throw her. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything to intentionally injure Sheldon. She bear hugged her, taking her to the ground. Yes, it was absolutely intentional. She lined up Sheldon and delivered the most satisfying, flagrant foul anyone had seen all season. Cunningham wrapped her up tight and pulled her down, a deliberate, controlled descent to the floor. This wasn't a basketball play. This was pure, unadulterated payback. This was justice finally being served. This was Sophie Cunningham sending a crystal clear, unmistakable message. Nobody messes with her teammates. The officials, with no other recourse, assessed Cunningham a flagrant 2 foul, leading to her immediate automatic ejection. But the drama wasn't over. Jacy Sheldon and Lindsay Allen also found themselves tossed from the game for their involvement in the ensuing scuffle, a chaotic, fitting end to a night of escalating tensions. 3 players ejected in the final seconds, but the damage was done. Justice, raw and uncompromising, finally landed on that court. To many, this was simply payback for the relentless aggression that had plagued the entire game, but Cunningham executed it with precision, ensuring she wouldn't injure Jacy. She was simply making it unequivocally known. If the referees refused to handle it, she would handle it. "We'll take care of it," was the unspoken message, but this is not what you will do when you come into our house. It was an intentional, hard foul, bringing her down. Yet, as you can see, Jacy Sheldon got right back up, ready to continue the fight. A full scuffle erupted, Sophie and Jacy going at it, both teams rushing over to break it up, the chaos even spilling into the fan section. In the end, Caitlin Clark finished with 20 points and 6 assists, leading the Indiana Fever to an 88-71 victory that resonated far beyond the scoreboard. Natasha Howard delivered her 50th career double-double with 16 points and 12 rebounds, while Kelsey Mitchell added 17 points. This was undeniably a complete team effort, but everyone understood the deeper significance. A rare miss at the rim for Aaliyah Boston, the league's top field goal percentage shooter, was quickly overshadowed by Boston's tenacious vicious steal, and find to Howard, Clark working on the rookie, driving, a hang shot just too strong, only for Howard to clean it up. Clark working off the ball, cutting off the stagger, showcasing her 3rd year in the WNBA in terms of setting up teammates, delivered a beautiful behind-the-back feed inside for 2 more Howard points. This wasn't just beating the Sun, this was the Fever proving unequivocally that they refuse to be bullied. They will not be intimidated, and most importantly, they protect their own. The victory propelled them to their first ever Commissioner's Cup final for the franchise. But more profoundly, it sent an undeniable message to the entire league about the consequences of targeting their players. The Indiana Fever fans, roaring their approval, chanted, "Sophie? Sophie?" Her jersey sales undoubtedly soared that night. She became an instant all-star in the hearts of fans, simply for standing on business. It wasn't a dirty play, it was a strategically intentional foul meant to deliver a message, though it regrettably escalated into a scuffle nobody truly desired. The Fever had their revenge after that brutal May 30th loss. Clark finally received a measure of justice after enduring an eye poke and a blatant body check. Sophie Cunningham became a hero, a symbol of unwavering loyalty for stepping up when it mattered most. Sometimes the officials will fail you, but your teammates, your true family, will always have your back. That's precisely what transpired on June 17th when the Indiana Fever delivered an unforgettable statement to the basketball world. They are not backing down from anybody. Clark, with a decisive steal, initiated a 2-on-1 break, delivering a beautiful bounce pass, and Mitchell made no mistake from there. This game solidified the Indiana Fever not merely as a talented squad, but as a tight-knit family that fiercely fights for each other when adversity strikes. When the officials abdicate their duty to protect the players, teammates like Sophie Cunningham step up and handle business themselves. That's the true definition of loyalty in professional sports. The Commissioner's Cup final awaits on July 1st against the Minnesota Lynx. After witnessing this team's resilience in the face of adversity, their unbreakable bond, and their willingness to stand up for one another, 2025 is already looking brighter than ever for Fever fans. Remember this unforgettable moment when anyone dares to tell you that loyalty doesn't matter in professional sports. Sophie Cunningham just proved them spectacularly wrong. If you support the Fever, comment CC and Spicy Sophie. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on the unfolding drama and triumphs.